I was also noticing in this actual editor window how it's nice where you can change between having all of the audio locked in time and being able to have it so it's movable, where you can actually take the bottom, the fade in, and zoom in and align it to actually be able to get the best phase possible when you're doing this type of work. Phase aligning.
Yeah, we can actually see down into the sample. If we go down here, and we can follow. We know that this is
we're clean.
We're clean, right, all the way. We can see it, and if we don't like that position, of course we can change it. But this tool too. Yeah, this is again on the simplest of fades. I still do this as an absolute check to know because this you can get close and listen to it, and it sounds pretty good. Right. And for those of us who are old enough to remember editing with a razor blade, that's how it was.
It is what it is.
Yeah, you got it close, and if it sounded pretty good, that was good. But this we know it's pretty much perfect. We can kind of guarantee that with the visual reference.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about the output section that you use. As far as, do you put anything in your master bus in Sequoia, or is that all done preceding?
It's all done. I work the way I do it typically is when I record into Sequoia, I'm pretty much done with the sonics. Okay. That is, I've got a lot of the shape because I have a lot of different equipment that I like to use for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about keeping my signal sounding the way I heard it on the output of my A-to-D converter.
Awesome.
It sounds like that when it gets there. However, of course, one part of mastering is doing levels, so I will change levels. I record everything because I do CD mastering predominantly. When I'm doing CD, I record it at 44.1, but I do record it at 32-bit float.
Yes.
To kind of give myself the option of doing more processing. I don't want it to be 16 bits.
No.
in here, even though it's going to end 16 bits,
right?
Because I want the pipe bigger, so in case we do some adjustments.
Yes.
And I will occasionally.
Including the crossfade we just.
Including crossfades, exactly, including dithering. I do the dithering on the end. We'll do level adjustments, and then I do incorporate some plugins. I've been using the QTech VPIs to some degree. Been using Waves plugins a bit. Been using Algorithmics plugins for noise reduction and deticking, things like that when I'm doing restoration. So there's all that kind of signal processing going on. Now, typically I do that at the object level.
Yes.
That's kind of where I'm comfortable doing it, and I also like the fact that I can take an object, a song, and cut it into 4 pieces and apply processing differently across those 4 pieces of the object, and it's seamless. And it's non-destructive. So if someone says, "Oh, that's all good except for the last part. I don't quite like that." Well, it's a simple fix to dial into the last part of the object and make the processing changes, and then go from there. So So again, I do that more from the object editor. You'll see. I'm not sure if I have one up here. I don't think it needs to do. But if we open the object editor, I would predominantly, open something from this panel. Pull up an equalizer, compressor, what have you, multiband, de-esser, and do my work in there. It's rare, although you can see on this album I actually do have an EQ set across the track. That it's just got one little move on it that the producer, he said it would just be perfect if we could just drop the bass just a tad across the whole record. So that's an instance where that's a little bit unusual, but that was an instance where I'm like, oh well, the easy way to do it is to put the EQ right on the track, and that's what we have here.
Exactly.
For me personally, it's rare that I'll open, say, the mixer panel and work from here. I tend not to work from the mixer panel so much. It's too many screens open for my workflow, and I can get to kind of all these other elements that I need to quickly. So that's pretty typical. And then
when you add a little processor such as you have in this, where you add an EQ, do you need to watch out then for the actual the main out on the main fader? Because obviously, as you know, if you're doing even a little bit of a cut in the bass, if you've already are at peaked all the way across and limited, it'll actually change that. Yeah, so you're having to address that.
It's one of those things I have to watch it. I have to and that's another thing that's really nice is this very excellent metering. These are kind of the 2 meters I usually keep open, is the peak meter and then the oscilloscope. I'm just one of those, again, I think this comes from doing it for a long time and cutting vinyl. I always like looking at an oscilloscope when I'm listening to audio and checking things in mono and whatnot. So I'll typically do this as I'm going through and watch for overs. And then, of course, it can be as simple as just a little gain move, like knocking down the master fader.
Right.
That's an acceptable way of doing it. Or maybe putting in some other kind of limiter or whatnot to hold things down. So,
but it sounds like you're doing it more naturally, pulling a volume down as opposed to strapping a plug-in across.
Yeah.
Keeping it more organic.
More for me, because again, I tend to think of the audio as more finished, and again, I try to get things into the system without overs.
Right.
To begin with, try to keep things slightly near zero, so that when we make a master, it used to be in the old days when you had an over, it kind of set off alarm bells at the CD production plants. That's not really the case anymore, but it's just not it's not good practice to be making CD masters with lots and lots of overs on them, because at some point, some consumer player may have a CD that'll play a glitch, not a glitch, but play some distortion there. So
yes.
So just as a good practice, as a good form, is to try and keep not make CD masters with overs. So yeah. And then again, love the fact that I can make DVPs. Love the fact that I can edit ISRC codes. I love power dithering.
Yes.
So these are all like production tools that I use day in and day out with this system. And I like the integration of that. And I love being able to import DDPs. I have to do that on occasion. So we have that function too with Sequoia. So for me, again, the CD mastering specific tools that have been made a part of it, they're essential. To me, it's not a mastering program. Because people will say, well, I master with this or I master with that. Like, well, how do you do ISRCs? Well, how do you make a DDP? Well, how do you make a CD? Sometimes they can't even do that without capturing files out to here. Because that's probably the other thing I should say about my workflow is, again, I won't then make a new image here or a new wave or capture something. This on the fly, piece of work. I'll go up to the make CD window, and I will burn stuff on the fly.
Absolutely.
And that's how I like to do it. Again, because it's a workflow issue. Like I don't want a full captured album that isn't finished yet.
Correct.
Right, because we're always doing revisions. I mean, that's just part of life in modern record production. There's a lot of cooks. A lot of people get to say, I like this, that. So it's all been done by committee. So the very flexibility of the VIP page to me, and it being able to keep track of all these things we've just talked about keeping track of processing, about keeping track of track information and ISRC codes and keeping track of what's going on with an object, or where the level is, or to me that just makes my life much easier. And I can close this, and we could go have dinner and come back, and we'd open it up, and it's all right there.
Exactly.
We start, or we can come back in a month, and it's all right there, and we can get back to it. So for me, it's just such an essential tool. I really couldn't work, like I said, without this particular system. And